This is question 6 to question 10 in homework 6, the second part. Question 6. Sometimes airlines raise ticket prices as the flight departure date approaches in the hope of increasing revenue on the assumption that, okay, very long, right? So basically they want to increase revenue. And then what do? When the flight departure date approaches, they raise ticket prices. Okay, there's a service provided by Google called Flights or Google Flights. Basically, you can look at flight prices across different periods, and you will see if you want to flight, say within the next week, the airline ticket price will be pretty high. Okay, so what's the assumption there? We have talked about if you want to increase revenue by increased ticket prices, basically you want to see inelastic demand. And as the flight departure date approaches, right? So if you look at prices, right? If you want to departure within the next week, it will be quite expensive. But if your time is flexible, you can be there next month or 1.5 months later. You don't have to pay the current very high price. So basically, the assumption is what? The people who want to leave, maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after tomorrow, they have very inelastic demand. Okay, very inelastic demand. So basically, we see which one, right? We see a sentence that is in the same spirit. Okay, less price elastic demand. Okay, as departure time approaches. Now, this one, the choice A says steady in its price elasticity of demand, and that is not what we are talking about. Unit elastic, the elasticity value equal to 1, that is not what we are talking about. Very sensitive to price changes as the time of departure approaches. Sensitive to price change means what? It means elastic. Okay, price sensitivity means their demand is quite elastic. What we have talked about is basically as the time of departure approaches, they become less sensitive. Okay, become less sensitive. So this one is not what we are looking for. Okay, let's look at question 7. When the price of chocolate-covered peanuts increases from $1.55 to $2, maybe a bag or something, the quantity demanded decreases from 220 to 180. If the price is $1.55, the total revenue is how much? This one is actually quite straightforward if you want to do the calculation, right? The first total revenue, 155 times how much? When the price is low, quantity demanded should be high, so times 220. Right, that is the one number. And then the second number is what? Increase to $2 a bag or something. Higher price, lower quantity demanded, times 180. That is how much? Okay. And we know one number should be bigger, the other number should be smaller. Okay. Let's call this one A and call this one B. Okay. So truly, if you think about it, this one only asks about total revenue. But if A is higher than B, what does it mean? If. I have to put this if here. It's a big if. Alright? So it means price go up. What? The revenue decline. Then you can have a conclusion about the elasticity of demand. Basically, from what we have talked about, it's elastic demand. Okay, if A is less than B, right? What do we have? Price goes up. The revenue, B is the second revenue, right? The price going up, the revenue actually increases. What do we got? We got now they are in the same direction. Okay, price and total revenue in the same direction. We got inelastic demand. So even though this question is only asking about the total revenue, it's a practice for you to understand the concept of total revenue and do some calculation. But the implied knowledge is actually to look at the effect of price change on total revenue, and then you can either derive the elasticity of demand, or say reversely, if you know the elasticity of demand, you can make a judgment, right? If I give you the value of A, you can make a judgment on the value of B if you know whether the demand is elastic or inelastic. Okay, think about that, okay? Let's look at the next question, question 8. If demand is elastic, the what effect dominates the what effect, and what kind of, now we know, increase or decrease, right, from this part. Let me see. I will just use this one, this part. Maybe from here, not very straight, but anyway, that's what I mean. Okay, this one tells us we are thinking about a change in the price has a direction, the increase or decrease will cause total revenue to rise. Okay, now this final word, rise, is what we want to talk about. Okay, the demand is elastic. If you have total revenue increase, we know the two has to go opposite direction, right? Elastic demand right here. In here, elastic demand is elastic. The two in opposite direction. Then total revenue increase, there has to be a decrease in the price. So we know it is either A or D. Okay, the answer is either A or D. And then total revenue increase, okay, there has to be what? Two effect. Let me again get an area so that I can write, right? What is the price effect? We have a drop in price. We talked about decrease in price. Elastic demand, we want to increase the total revenue, so there's a drop in price. So that part is a negative, right? It's a negative effect on total revenue. This has to be small. Because it's a negative effect, we want the total revenue. The total effect is positive. So the negative part has to be small, right? If you think about it, right, the total revenue TR is price times quantity. And we just have a price drop. That price drop has a negative impact on the what? Total revenue. So this one has to be small. And then the quantity effect, we decrease the price, so the quantity demanded go up. It's an increase in quantity. I put an increase in quantity. Now that is a positive effect. The total result, right? The total revenue increase. So this has to be overwhelming. It's a big. Let me do this. B I G. Really big. Okay, dominating effect. It has to be the quantity effect, right? Dominates the price effect. Okay. So that is the reason. That is the reason why we have this conclusion about elastic demand. It is also the result, okay, because the demand is so elastic. If you think about the demand itself, it's some demand curve looks like this, okay, like this, and a inelastic demand more like this, right? The elastic demand give you so much change in quantity for a given change in the price. So the quantity effect, okay, the quantity effect dominates the price effect. Right? If you think about the price, have this price to start with. Push it a little bit higher, and then a lower price. Okay. Yes, the what's going on? The price went down. All right, the price went down. That gives a decrease in total revenue, but the quantity, right, goes out a lot. Let me show you that quantity. This quantity goes up a lot. Quantity demanded or quantity sold goes up a lot. The result is I have a total revenue actually increased. That is the result. So it's basically one set of reasoning, but this conclusion is what you need to memorize. Actually, you only need to memorize half of it. For me, just for myself, I think the inelastic result is very easy to understand. So I memorize the inelastic demand. Then price and the revenue goes in the same direction. It's basically because this inelastic demand, I change the price, the quantity demanded doesn't change that much. So if I increase the price, my total revenue go up. If I decrease the price, my total revenue goes down, just because the quantity effect is so small. So it just make it easier for me to memorize. And then what do? I derive the second part. If the demand is elastic, then total revenue and the price change goes into the opposite directions. And then the rest is kind of, I can just derive. Okay, if I understand the whole argument, I can derive the rest. I don't need to memorize so much information. I reduce this information into just one sentence. If the demand is inelastic, the price and the total revenue goes in the same direction. Okay, that's my one sentence skill or trick. One sentence trick. You reduce the information you need to memorize into a smaller set of information. Okay, now question 9. The price elasticity of demand for lettuce has been estimated to be 2.58 elastic demand. If an insect deforestation destroys 10% of the national lettuce crop. Okay, so basically what's going on? You have a demand, quite elastic, and then a supply, right? This is the supply this year, and move back, right? Supply move back, and let me give you another one, and maybe no, I cannot change it into. I can only change it into a different color. Let's say make this one pink. Okay, this is old demand. This is the new demand. Sorry, old supply, new supply, and the price will increase, right? The price will increase, but the demand is elastic. How will that affect total revenue from lettuce? If you think about it, will it remain unchanged? Nah. Will it fall? Right? Elastic demand, total revenue, and the price goes into the opposite directions. So think about it. Price go up, right? The price goes up. Price goes up, and then price is higher. How about your total revenue for elastic demand? Either rise or fall. Okay, and D is saying the information is insufficient to answer the question. That is not true. We have sufficient information to reach a conclusion. Okay, just use the trick, or say the basic conclusion we learned from above. Now let's look at question 10. Use figure. This figure, the demand for notebook computers. The change in total revenue resulting from a change in price from P, this level, P, to T. This level is T. It's basically a price decrease. Let's say price drop. Okay, we have a price drop, and suggest that the demand is what? Well, if you eyeballing it, right, total revenue at P is this area. It's PS0M. Total revenue at price level T is this area, TV0N. Obviously, at price level T, you got a higher total revenue, right? The total revenue increase, so total revenue, we can also make a note, right? When price drops, total revenue increases, opposite direction, so the demand should be, you know what, right? Then there's a conclusion. Okay. Also, you can see here what is the price effect. Price effect is this small loss of total revenue because you have lower prices. Okay, for quantity 0 to M, you lost this part of the total revenue, PTOS. This is the total revenue loss. But then because the price has dropped, the quantity demanded now is a lot, so the quantity effect is UVNM. Okay, let me write it down. The price effect is the negative of PSTU. The quantity effect is the increase of UVNM. That give you the increase in the total revenue. Okay, that give you the increase in total revenue because obviously this part, the increase, the quantity effect dominates the price effect. And if you remember, if the quantity effect dominates price effect, right? What about the demand? Okay, That is question 6 to question 10 in homework 6.